Thank you. Good afternoon. James, one of our key employees, asked me the other day, he said, what does everyone ask you? And everyone basically says, why have you left Australia and come to Wales? You know, everyone, I think, here dreams of going to Australia for holidays, enjoying the sunshine, enjoying the lovely beaches and the waves and so on. We have left that behind, but look what we've come to. So it's actually not so bad. And I've got to say that it has been really a very wonderful experience coming to Wales, being welcomed by Marine Energy Wales, welcomed by the people, welcomed by the port, welcomed by the industry. And it's great to have that sort of welcome. I guess the other thing we do in Australia is whenever we start a speech, we talk about welcome to country. And this is, I guess it has its roots when the Europeans invaded Australia 250 years ago. It's now a recognition that there were landholders there before, and this is just recognising. Well, anyway, we're going to start doing welcome to country here because we're actually doing a reverse invasion. So we're coming to Wales. We'll be doing it invisibly. It's on the bottom of the seabed. You won't even see us coming. And we'll start with Pembroke Dock, and we'll expand from there. Okay, on to the presentation. So in terms of the company, an Australian-based technology company, we've come to Wales to commercialise the technology, and that involves going through a project to validate the device at full scale, and with a view to the future, looking at projects. So the phase we're going through right now is we're leaving behind the technology development. The innovation phase is finished. That was done in Australia. We're now down to a much more boring phase where we start detailed design, construction, build, test some more, repair, test again. So the project looks like roughly a £20 million project over 2.5 to 3 years. And that culminates with a demonstration off Pembrokeshire of the 1.5 megawatt device, so 10 metres beneath the seabed. Just recapping what the device is for those of you who haven't seen a Bombora before, a Bombora M-Wave. Just in terms of where the name comes from, Bombora, it's a submerged reef, and we are a submerged reef on the seafloor. So when we're deployed, you won't see us at all. But basically, as the waves pass over the device, they sequentially pump the membranes, and they pump air through a central duct down past a turbine. So it's a long device. Each of those cells there is 8 cells. Each cell is about as long as the distance from myself to the back wall and up to the corner over there. So it's a very large membrane, and this is like a conveyor belt material, and it basically converts directly from the pressure of the wave, well submerged beneath the waves, converts that into compressed air through a turbine. So it's a very simple energy transition. And the way we're planning to do this is we'll be building the device at Pembroke Dock, towing it to site, and then submerging it onto the seabed and just resting on the seafloor. Okay, our catchphrase, if you've seen our logos upstairs, it's a very simple device. We do the energy conversion through the membrane, and it goes directly into compressed air. So no complex systems. And I think that's really a key to our system. It's a very simple system. And when you're out there at sea, you want it to be very simple. So ecological, so working in harmony with ocean systems. In fact, our mid-scale device that was in the water for 2 years, that became a submerged reef. So it grew the microorganisms. It had fish feeding on them and bigger fish feeding on those, and then dolphins feeding off those fish as well. So it's interesting how it actually creates its complete ecosystem underneath the ocean. And I guess the great thing is that you won't even know it's there. It's taking roughly 20% of the wave's energy out, so a very small portion of the wave's energy. So what we think is we're doing something quite smart, which is the use of very simple parts in a clever way to give us a good outcome. So the theme for today's discussion was about resilience and innovation. And I guess I'm just reflecting on this, what do we see as being resilience? And I look back at the history of other companies, and I'd say what we need to do is make sure we have a very sound financial base. And with that, we can play the game. We need to engage very experienced people who've done this before if we can, people who understand very practical things. And from that, we need to be adopting their learnings. You know, where have things gone well, where have things not gone well, and put them into our project. And we need to engage an experienced supply chain. So wherever possible, I mean, some are here today, Leighton Marine, they've been in the industry for a long time. They have invaluable advice they can give us. In other words, don't design your device, or we shouldn't design our device and say, Leighton, how could you deploy this? We actually design it in conjunction with them, and so design for deployment, design for maintenance along the way. And I guess I'll come to at the end about controlling this innovation. We've done our innovation, which was the development of this membrane on the seabed. Now we need to make sure we don't innovate anymore. We need to use conventional industrial products and use them to create a solution. Okay, just in terms of the strong financial foundation, there's two key elements to this. Back in the past, we've supported by, I guess, a friends network of investors. We've now moved beyond that into a very strong partner, that's NZen. So they've taken a big chunk of the company, but have given us the financial foundation to move forward. And we're working with the Welsh Government for a WIFO grant, and that will provide us the foundation. So one of those is already complete in terms of the NZen backing, and we're working through the process with the Welsh Government, and that will form the foundation to make sure we can do this project successfully. Okay, the second point about resilience was get an experienced team. And I think some of these names you will know, but we've clearly gone out to industry and picked people who have worked in this field before, and they bring with them a wealth of experience. I guess also the reality is we'll need to work damn hard over the next few years, and you need a highly motivated team, and I think we have formed this really good nucleus of enthusiastic, keen people who want to see this succeed. And I guess that's bringing together the experience from TGL, AWS, Atlantis, Tidal Energy Limited. They're all people who worked on those projects directly and now within the company, and so they bring us that skill base. And I guess we've looked at other programs and said, well, where did they succeed, where did they fail? And I guess we've just tried to make sure that we integrate all those into our project design, the way we're doing things. In terms of supply chain, obviously great thanks go to Marine Energy Wales for helping us get the overall thing established. I mean, we're now fully operational. We moved here in November. We have a team of 12 today, of an experienced team, so we're definitely up and running very quickly. We are integrated into the Marine Energy Wales Meta Test Site program. So our plan is that we will use their Meta Test Site for the deployment. With the membrane, we've launched the design process, so engage the supplier, and they're going through design options and making sure we consider all the different options before we go forward. With the valves, we've got two different suppliers, Custom Valve Concepts and Blackfish, and they're both working in parallel on different valve concepts. We've started discussions on the PTO. We engaged Or Catapult on making sure that we specify that correctly. So that's, again, bringing in skills from the outside. And we're going through now workshops on the assembly and deployment process. And I guess all that comes together. So far, we've only had a few contracts. Overall, 2/3 of our budget is going out to suppliers. And so we're looking at engaging them early and having them follow through the complete process. I think my picture is the reverse of yours, looking from the other view. But it shows that, yes, Pembroke Dock is a great place for us. And in terms of visualising how this might work, we could, for example, assemble at mainstay, move across, assemble the other components, do a final assembly, and then launch from Pembroke Dock. So this, of course, will need to go to procurement, but this is kind of what we're thinking as could be the way it will work out. Okay, so just in terms of, we heard this morning from Ernesto about the fact that you need to develop a pipeline from where you are through to the future. So our plan right now is we'll use the meta test site for the initial deployment and trials. In parallel, we're developing a second site, which is for a multiple device array deployment. And so that will run in parallel so that we can show to our investors and, I guess, our company that we could progress through the pathway. And I guess we'll come back to it at the end, but obviously when we get to arrays, there needs to be commercial support mechanisms in place to make sure that's feasible for investors. So what's next for us? Obviously on the financial foundation, secure the final part of the WIFO grant, sign the contract. In terms of operations, we've just started letting contracts. Now need to progress that even further, looking at the PTO, the main structure and the marine ops. Of course, we need to maintain the resilience and the robustness of the project, so stage-gated, careful approach to it. Continue learning from industry, taking input from outside. And I guess in terms of the way I'd like to view it is that we need to minimise special things. Use standard concrete, standard steel fabrication. Use standard control valves. Whatever it is, use standard industry parts. Don't try and invent anything. We've done the invention, which is the development of the membrane and the style of the membrane. Now we need to stop that. And then looking, I guess, beyond this project, we need to mature our commercial pipeline. And we've heard this morning about the IPPA schemes. Those sorts of schemes, whatever it happens to be, need to be in place. Without that, we won't get investor funding. We won't be able to progress through this pathway. You know, we'd like to see this become a thriving industry. There's a lot of us, we're perhaps a little bit behind some of the others, but there's a lot of us trying to get through this gateway of proving technology and then proving commerciality and going forward. And need a bunch of us energetically pursuing it, and some of us will get through, and some of us won't. Okay, just reflecting then. So in terms of how do we maximise resilience, a strong financial foundation, engage experienced people, engage experienced supply chain. And I guess when it comes back to, I've been harping on a bit about this process innovation. Back in history, I used to work in automotive industry, and we thought, oh, it can't be so hard to put a compressor on an engine. And you think, well, that sounds easy, we'll just put a compressor on the engine. But it's not so easy. You have a piston compressor, simple concept. Then, first of all, you start pumping the air. That then causes condensation. You need to remove the condensation. So more valves and maybe an absorber, which needs a control system. And then if you over-compress, then you start burning the oil. So you need to cool the compressor. Otherwise you burn your reed valves. So I need a cooling system for the compressor. And then it just builds and builds and builds, and we need to be very careful with our system, and I think it's advice to everyone, is that really resist the temptation to add systems on. Make it as dumb as you can. Make it with simple parts that fail safe, because otherwise we'll end up with these very, very complex systems. Complex means unreliable, reliable means we're not going to succeed. So that, I guess, the main message. You know, we need to make sure we have a strong financial foundation, do the best we can, and maybe we'll win. Thank you.